With that, let's go ahead and actually dive into it. We're talking about patch management today on the NinjaOne platform and how we can improve our compliance and our security, which I think are maybe two sides of the same coin, but there's some slight differences there between compliance and then the actual security impact of what patching can do for your operation. Up on the agenda today, we are going to talk about the importance of patching, which I imagine most people who are watching, you're already very familiar with why patching is so important. Patching for both the operating system as well as patching for third-party applications. We'll then dive into the demonstration portion, and we'll actually do a demo of NinjaOne, of all the patching-related features, how you manage those patches in NinjaOne. We have a cool new AI feature that lets you know when patches may have issues that we call AI patch sentiment. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about workstations versus servers. So on the Windows side, you probably are actually doing more with patching on the workstation front than you are with servers, but some slight differences there that we'll dive into. Then we go into everything you might not know about patching, which is really a broad brush, but we'll talk about how you can use several features within NinjaOne to support the overall health of your patching operation. We'll talk about patching third-party applications, obviously another important vector there. Want to make sure that vulnerable apps get patched as well, how we track patch compliance. If we have some time, we'll also dive into Linux patching and Mac OS patching. Those are both right now early access features at NinjaOne. So we'll talk about what that means and what the roadmap looks like, and we'll also talk about other patching features and what the roadmap looks like for our 7.0 release, which is going to start rolling out in December, and then what the first half of the roadmap looks like for 2025 with regard to patching features. With that, let's go ahead and dive in. Unpatched endpoints or unmanaged, well, I would say unpatched endpoints are unmanaged endpoints, or at least poorly managed endpoints. And that is how cyber attacks get started. Cyber attacks gain a foothold most of the time on devices or endpoints that are not managed, are poorly managed, and are unpatched. And it makes them vulnerable to compromise, and it's how networks get compromised. So we have a bunch of different difficulties here. One is that we're living in a time where there are more endpoints than there have ever been. This is kind of a sea change here. To me, it's maybe the most seismic change to the IT industry since the invention of the laptop, with how many different endpoints are out there and that need to be managed, and that also need to be managed in a distributed environment. With the advent of remote work, these devices are all over the country, all over the globe. The idea of having all these devices in a single location that has, for the most part, gone the way of the wind. It's just not how businesses operate anymore, and IT teams need to be able to stay with the pace of how a business is operating. Now, all these endpoints have a compounding factor with the fact that there are also more vulnerabilities than there have ever been before as well. The number of CVEs in year over year from 2022 into 2023 went up 65%. And I will say that I don't think anybody really expects that to go down. The number of vulnerabilities is probably only going to go up and increase, if not stay at least static with that 65% number. And again, another compounding factor here is that the time for vulnerability disclosure has dropped. And so you now need to not just patch, you need to patch faster than you've ever had to patch previously. So there's a lot of factors in here, and NinjaOne can really help solve those. We're built to patch Windows, Mac OS, and Linux devices, which we'll talk about today. We can patch Android devices through our mobile device management, and then in our 7.0 release, we're going to be launching the ability to patch iOS devices and iPadOS devices that are under NinjaOne MDM as well. And so in addition to operating system patch management, we need to be able to patch third-party applications. We need to be able to deploy software, manage the software once it's installed, and we need robust monitoring, alerting, and reporting to let us know when something has gone wrong. And we'll talk about how we can use other features of NinjaOne that might not strictly be related to patching to help support your overall patching operation. And of course, we need scripting and automation to make sure that this isn't very manually intensive, that we're able to scale effectively across hundreds, thousands of endpoints, and not have to have a whole bunch of manual work factored in to what needs to be done, let's say every month, because that's the cadence that we're typically operating on with Windows devices. Now, this has led to some very real success. Here's a case study from VetCore. They were able to save 40 plus hours a month with NinjaOne's automated patch management. There was further consolidation of their tool set. They were able to replace more than 10 tools, including patching, backup, remote access, and this improved their technician footprint. We can see here one technician able to effectively manage 1,500 devices by virtue of superior automation and workflow. Now, with that, we have a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and dive into the demonstration portion. Hopefully everybody can see my screen here. Looks like it's coming through okay. A reminder again, if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A section of Zoom. The chat is scrolling by very quickly, so I am probably not going to be able to recall everything that filters through the chat. When we look at this dashboard here, we get immediate insight into the overall health of our IT estate. And I'm going to focus in on two specific line items here. One right here, operating system patches. And this is again for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. If you are interested in patching Linux and Mac OS and you say, well, I don't see anything inside of my policies, that's because it's an early access feature that needs to be enabled by your account manager. So if you are looking in your policies and you don't see Mac OS patching or Linux patching, definitely reach out to your account manager and they can get that enabled for you. Now, right here, we're seeing operating system patches. Some have failed, some are pending. And then right below that, we see the exact same information, but for third-party software applications instead. So what applications have failed to install, and then what are pending, what requires approval before NinjaOne is going to start and push it out. Now, this is all controlled from the patching tab that we see right here. You'll see software patches, what's pending, what's already been approved, either manually or automatically by your policy settings, what has been rejected, and of course, anything that is rejected, we can always bring back to life if we have a need for it, and then what's installed and what's failed. And the operating system patches section looks very similar. The one addition here is the overview dashboard, which is giving us insight into the overall health of our patching compliance. Right here, you can see that we are at 67% right now. Patch Tuesday was yesterday, so we had a whole bunch of patches drop yesterday. And what this number indicates is that 21 out of the 31 patch-enabled devices in this environment are fully patched. But that means that we have 10 devices that have at least one or more patches that are outstanding. And you get some insight into this right here. Top 10 devices with the most approved and pending patches. We can see some of these have 2 patches, but most of them just have 1, and it's likely the outstanding cumulative update that was just launched yesterday. If we go to the patches installed tile, we get a little bit more granularity into what state the patch is in. Is it in an approved state, meaning it's ready to be downloaded and installed to the device? It just hasn't had the actual application of those updates occur yet, which could be based off of scheduling variances. It could also be because the device hasn't been online to successfully patch. We can also see what patches have failed to install and then what patches are pending. And this means that a human being has to actually take a look at these patches and say, yes, I want to install them. Now, if we look at this, right here, I want to focus on our new feature, AI patch sentiment. And you can see this in the KB analysis column right here. Now, right here, the most recent cumulative update that just came out yesterday, right now this is appearing stable. If we click on that, we can go down and read more insight into the nature of the vulnerability, the patch, and what the patch is going to do, and then the general sentiment right here. And we can see that the general sentiment does appear to be positive. So far, everything is looking good. But again, it just came out yesterday, so there's still some time for this to turn a little sour. So one thing we would want to show here is that we are using publicly available information. There is no customer data that's being leveraged for this feature. This is wholly based off of publicly available information that we are processing and then displaying right here. Let's go ahead and switch gears. Let's look at something that we know has problems. So let's go ahead and look at this top one here. We go down, we can see the sentiment here is mixed, and some of that is because some users are experiencing a black screen upon logging into Azure Virtual Desktop. This feature is brand new. It just became something that you can opt into with the 6.0 release, which in the United States rolled out in October. So it's still relatively a new feature, but I know that this has already helped people who are using NinjaOne who said, hey, why are my users experiencing a black screen? And actually going and looking at the patching analysis here, they were able to say, oh, well, okay, here's the reason why there's a problem. And then below that, we can see that there are some workarounds and resolutions here, which would help you actually solve the issue. And you will see our cited sources here, as well as our disclaimer, which is that we are doing our best here, but we would always recommend that you still keep your ear to the ground on Windows patching and make sure that you're aware of the state of how those patches are being deployed and if there are any issues that you're hearing separately from our AI patching analysis here. And now some other information that's valuable when you're doing the approval process, we can see our CVEs right here. So what exploits are being remediated by this particular KB? If we click on that, you actually get a list of all the CVEs right here. You can copy this to your clipboard if you need to for reporting purposes. We will see the link right here. You can actually click on each individual CVE, and this will take you to the NIST website so you can read up on the nature of the exploit. And you'll also get a CVSS score for the exploit itself. And that CVSS score is on a scale of 10. It's designed to give you an indication of the importance of the exploit. Something that is a 10 would be, a 0-day exploit, something that's very, very bad. You need to patch immediately. And you'll see the overall CVSS score for the patch as a whole right here. And this is going to be important because we can build alerts to let us know when there is a patch with a CVSS score above a certain threshold. We'll get other information like the number of devices that this applies to. In this case, I can look at these 5 devices right here and get an indication of, I take action on them if they require the patch. If I go back here, you'll also see the release date. So when was this patch released? Just very good information. Is a reboot required? Most of the times with Windows Update, it is going to be required, but just very valuable information here. Now, I want to go ahead and switch gears for a second. I want to talk about how we set all of this up. So here we are, we're managing patches. We can go ahead and approve them if we think that they're good right here. We can reject them. Of course, again, anything that is rejected, you can bring back to life. And if we approve something, and then we later hear, maybe through the KB analysis, the AI patch sentiment feature, if we later hear that there are problems, it's very easy for me to go and find something that's been approved and then go ahead and actually reject it. So you get that ability to be flexible, to go back and forth between your approvals and your rejections. But how does all this get put in place? It's all determined by the policy. And so we would go into administration and then policies. And I'll actually go ahead and switch to a different tab here to show you a policy I've created just for this webinar. And this is addressing workstation settings. I do have a separate server policy, and we'll talk about what some of the differences are there between your workstations and your servers. Over on the left-hand side, you can see here that we have conditions, we have scheduled automations, we have Windows patching, we have what antivirus is being deployed, the third-party software patching, and your backup settings. And I think this illustrates why this is so important, why the policy is so important. All your major settings that you care about on the day-to-day, they are inside of this policy that we see here. We'll start with Windows patching. Right here, you'll see that we've got it turned on and we are in Control Windows Patch Management mode. I would recommend that if you switch into Configure Windows Updates, you will see that you lose a lot of the cool stuff. You really lose all control, all granularity with Windows patching. So certainly would recommend the Control Windows Patch Management method. We then also have our scan schedule and our update schedule, 2 distinct schedules. The scan schedule is going to detect new patches, what is available, what needs to be installed on the device. And then the update schedule is actually going to download and install the updates that have been approved. Now, how does something get approved? We go down here, we'll see that everything is categorized and we can set a variety of approvals on these categories. So for example, optional patches right here. In my experience, these usually cause a lot of problems. So I generally want to reject these. It's very rare that there's going to be an optional patch that you truly need. Anything that you really need is going to come through the important channel at a later date. Now we can see that we're also automatically approving certain security updates here. And so these are rubber stamped. As soon as they are detected, they are approved, and they'll be automatically installed with the update schedule cadence that we see at the top of the screen. Now, let's say we don't want to rubber stamp immediately, and this is a very good bit of caution that I would recommend. Perhaps we want a time-delayed patch approval process. And we can see right here, we have our approval after a week. So once the patch has been out for a week, we're going to go ahead and then approve it, and it would be installed on the update schedule. Now, this time delay is important because it gives you a grace period where you can go ahead and reject a patch that does appear to have problems. So going back to our AI patch sentiment feature, we may want to go ahead and keep updates on ice for a little bit, and then we can go ahead and actually automatically approve it. And if anything happens in that week interim period, we have the ability to go and reject that patch so that it doesn't actually get installed. So this is a nice little feature. It does come in handy. There are patches that do cause issues. I'll say explicitly for in this week, I believe, there was a KB that Microsoft released that was inadvertently upgrading Windows servers from version 2022 to 2025, which is very strange. That's not something that typically happens with Windows patches for the servers because you require new licensing for that new version. So generally, that's not supposed to happen. And so I believe that issue has been fixed now, but that was something when the patch was initially pushed out that we might have wanted to go ahead and have this grace period here where it wasn't getting installed immediately, just so we could prevent the scenario of having our servers inadvertently upgraded to a newer version that we don't have licensing for and having to go through what's probably a manual process to roll that patch back. So just an indication there of we want to patch quickly, but there's also having to balance the need to patch quickly and maintain compliance and be secure with the potential disruptions to your operation that can come with installing patches that don't always do exactly what we think. And of course, we have a manual element here. Right here, drivers, feature updates. I am taking that manual route where nothing is getting automatically approved. A human being has to go look at it, look at that KB analysis feature, and they have to go ahead and approve it for policies. So those are the different categorical options or you'll have for approval. Now, if we go back up, we'll see that update schedule. Whether you approve something manually, whether you approve it automatically, it will be installed by this update schedule here. The scheduling options I'm leveraging here are scanning for new patches every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and then every Thursday at 7 o'clock, I am actually going to go ahead and download and install them. You can use a daily cadence if you'd like. We could do a monthly cadence on a specific numbered day of the month. And then I have the custom option as well, which would let me patch maybe on the, let's say, second Wednesday of the month, right after Patch Tuesday. And you can standardize this to a time zone. I usually use local device time, as you can see here. And you do have the option here for a duration. Essentially, if the patching cycle is taking longer than expected, let's say 4 hours, and you have a very tight maintenance window, you can make it so that if we have a 4-hour duration, at the conclusion of those 4 hours, the patching process will immediately exit, so you do not overstay your welcome on a very tight maintenance window, which I know does happen. Also, I would point out here that we have this run scan immediately if missed. If the device is offline Wednesday at 5 o'clock, I want it to go ahead and actually scan as soon as the device comes back online. And you'll see I'm also leveraging this option right here, running the update immediately if missed. You do not have to have this checked, but I will say that generally I notice people who are not leveraging that run immediately if missed option, they generally have worse patch compliance scores, especially when they patch late at night. If you're patching at midnight, the odds of machines consistently being on at that time are low. So having this option means that any machines that are offline at this scheduled time, they'll come back online and immediately start patching. That may or may not be desirable for your particular operation. It really depends on expectations that you have with your end users or if you're an MSP with your clients. We can attempt to automatically wake up system here, skip on metered connections, and then when we're actually executing this update schedule here, we might want to run a script immediately before or after. You can even use this pre-script to perform a check. So if the table is not set for the update to occur successfully, you can exit out of it, preventing any disruption. Good example that I would have used when I was managing devices is for servers. The servers could transfer files. Servers were largely LMSs transferring content to other servers. And so I would certainly want to have a script here to check for any potential transfers, file transfers that were ongoing for that server. And if there was an ongoing transfer, I would want to exit out of the patch update because then that would disrupt my file transfer. So just an example here of how you can handle that with NinjaOne patching. I see somebody here calling me out here. That was back from my days managing servers for movie theaters. And yes, it was transferring content, movies across to the individual auditoriums where they played. So after all that patches get installed, we need to do a reboot. Now, Ninja will place an indicator on the device, on the dashboard, indicating that a reboot is required. If a user is logged in, we might want to prompt them. And so here we are prompting them to reboot until they accept. I'm doing a prompt of every 6 hours. They get 12 total prompts. If I've done my math right, that's 3 days. And so here we can go ahead and do a reboot dialog right here. We can say, hey, please reboot your device at your earliest convenience. Patches are ready to be installed. If you have any questions, please contact your IT department. You can customize this. Feel free to say whatever you'd like here. You could also notify the user and then reboot. You could automatically reboot. My issue with that is that if a user is logged in but has locked their machine, this could still potentially disrupt work. Uh, we can also just do nothing like I am right here. So let's go ahead and switch gears here a little bit. Let's talk about our server settings. So I'm going to switch my tab to a server policy. You'll see up here I have a Windows server policy at the very top. So if we go right here, you'll see some immediate changes. First of all, the reboot options. I'm actually doing nothing for my reboot options with servers. And that's because in my experience, I want to reboot my server at a specific point in time, right down to the second, quite honestly. I don't want to rely on the variance within a patching schedule. I want to be able to go ahead and do this on my own set schedule. And so I'm not doing any reboot in regard to patching. I'm actually handling this reboot through scheduled automations. And so in my case, I'm doing a weekly cadence of patching. I'm doing this every Sunday at 7:30 in the morning. And this is going to go ahead and reboot all of my servers. Again, you would want to tailor this to your own particular environment here. Might not be safe to reboot every week. It might not be safe to reboot, this at 7:30 in the morning. You'd want to make sure that you have a particular time frame that's going to work well for your devices. Other settings that are different here. My scan schedule and my update schedule are different. You can see here I'm patching on the fourth Sunday of the month at 4 a.m. and I am only allowed to patch for 3 hours. At the conclusion of those 3 hours, we are going to abort the patching process and allow the device to continue to normal operation. You'll also see here, I'm giving myself a bigger grace period here with the approvals. I want a longer period of time to know if there are potential issues with patches. Now let's switch back to our workstation policy and let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that I am doing to make sure that my patching operation stays on track. We'll go into our conditions here. And here I have some alerts that are going to trigger to let me know when the settings of the device are not what I would expect them to be, or the device is out of compliance with whatever I've said the setting should be. So for starters, this is something that I've talked about before, but there was one time where I walked into a location and there was not a single genuine copy of Windows in the building, and they had also disabled the Windows Update service. And so now I like to go ahead and have a little check here that looks for if the Windows Update service is disabled. This is a very simple script just looking at the nature of the service here. And if it is disabled, it will trigger an alert. Now, in response to that alert, I have an automation running, and this is a Windows patching repair script. This is going to go ahead and take some actions to ensure the device is prepared to receive Windows updates. Among other things, it's going to also ensure that the Windows Update service is turned on, that it's enabled and ready to go. And then right here, the when no longer met auto reset means that whenever we make this successful change and the service starts to, well, not be disabled, we can go ahead and reset the alert. And if you're creating a ticket here, you can see I'm using a closed loop ticketing rule to ensure that the corresponding ticket that gets generated from this also gets closed out as well. Other options here. One would be a high priority patch is available. So we talked about the CVSS score. In my case, if I have a CVSS, well, let me back up there. If I have a patch with a CVSS score of 9.0 or greater, and I've had that patch available for at least one day, I'm going to go ahead and create an alert there, letting me know that I have an important patch, potentially an out-of-band patch that needs to be deployed. You can see I've also got a ticket created for that as well. And the same thing for if a device has not installed an operating system patch in the previous 30 days. This one is tricky because Your exact cadence every month may be slightly longer than 30 days. So on workstations, you might want to bump this up to 60 to prevent false positives. But what we're doing here is looking only at operating system patches. Whenever we've gone 30 days without an operating system patch being installed, this would then trigger an alert. Note here, I am using the option to only look for patches that are detected by the Ninja Update engine or installed by the Ninja Update engine. And my rationale for this is that Windows Defender updates also count as operating system patches. So if I left this option unchecked, this would mean that those Defender updates would count, and I don't think they technically do, at least in my estimation. So I'm looking for only patches that have been installed by the Ninja agent. Then, finally, I have a script that is writing in the Windows Active Support and Windows Security Support into custom fields. We'll take a look at this a little bit later. But if I do not have a positive value, a yes value indicating that I am currently in active support with Windows or within security support, I want to know about it. I want to know when my devices are not within the scope of support and when they, need something done to bring them back into compliance. And so right here, this is powered by a script from Mikey O'Toole. He is a member of the NinjaOne Discord, a NinjaOne power user. He's created a lot of really good scripts, and I would highly recommend checking out the Discord for this script in particular. With the email that goes out tomorrow with the recording, I did want to go ahead and let everybody know I will have a bit of a companion piece to this webinar that will include the conditions I'm setting up, the automations I'm setting up, links to the automations if they are not native to Ninja in the NinjaOne template library, and essentially just everything that I'm doing here today to make it a little bit easier to follow in the future. So that'll go out sometime tomorrow. Take a brief break here. Before we dive in and continue further, a quick question. What is the single biggest patching challenge that you face today? Is it deploying deploying patches to distributed devices? Is it not having a centralized place to manage all of your patch approvals? Or is it just not having patching that works properly? It's not doing what you need to. And so we'll go ahead and pop up a question there on the screen. Feel free to answer. And while we are answering that question, I will move on down to our scheduled automations here. Now, for starters, I have a device onboarding script, and I want to point out here that I am only leveraging patching related automations here. I am aware of the fact that for a very real device onboarding scheduled automation like we see here, you probably have a lot of stuff in there. So this is not meant to be an entire look at what a device onboarding automation looks like, just the patching related stuff. And so over here on the right, we have our very first script, which is blocking the Windows 11 upgrade on Windows 10 devices. Obviously, we're a little bit further from the initial launch of Windows 11 at this point, but my understanding is that the basically 2/3 of the market share for Windows workstations is still Windows 10. So with that in mind, I'm aware of the fact that people might want to prevent the Windows 11 upgrade from happening immediately. The way to do that, the most effective way to do that is to make a modification on the registry. We have a template library script that does this for you. Just need to import it from the template library. And here you can see I'm executing this script and I'm forcing it to stay on version 22H2 of Windows, which is the latest and last version of Windows 10. I also want to check for the Windows 11 compatibility on the device. Not every device is going to be able to upgrade to Windows 11. Now, my understanding is that the end of life for Windows 11 is officially in about a year, October or November, sometime in 2025. I did hear recently that there is the ability to go ahead and pay a monetary fee in order to extend that support for a year. So that is definitely an option there, but I imagine some people are going to say, well, we just need to get new hardware that'll support the upgrade. And so what we can do here is know which of our devices can support the Windows 11 upgrade, which of them cannot and may need to be replaced in order to maintain that support beyond the end of life date for Windows 10. Another option here, blocking the end user from initiating Windows updates on their own. This also makes a registry modification that grays out the box inside of Windows Update locally that allows you to check for updates. Now, I imagine that most end users are not doing this, but this is sometimes important because if you want to block a patch through NinjaOne, You also need to block the end user from running their own patching to prevent bad patches from getting installed. So this is a good way to make sure that you, as the system administrator of the device, you are able to control all the patches through NinjaOne and not have to worry about cross-contamination, I guess we'll put it, from the end user potentially installing patches on their own. Again, I imagine this is rare, but I'm a crazy person who occasionally installs his own Windows updates. So yes, there are people out there who do it. Everybody's an end user somewhere, I guess. We also have a Windows patching repair script. This is again just setting the table, making sure that the device is prepared to receive Windows updates and that NinjaOne is able to successfully patch. And then finally, we have that script from Mikey O'Toole that is checking for Windows support status and writing into those custom fields to let us know if we are within or outside of both active support and Windows security support. And if we look over at our server policy again, you can see I'm doing things a little bit differently. In this case, I do also have a recurring check for Windows support status. So even though I'm running it as an onboarding script, I also want to go ahead and run this on a recurring basis because obviously as time passes, the device may no longer be within Windows active or security support. So I do need to do this on a recurring basis. I think once a week is more than enough. You could even probably do this only once a month. But this ensures that any devices that might be offline get captured. They have at least 4 bytes at the apple to have the script run every single month. Now, I also have a WSUS repair script here. I am not running this on a scheduled basis. I'm running this on an as-needed basis. So if you have a device that was previously managed by WSUS, this will go through and attempt to repair some of the registry settings so that the device is able to successfully patch. I would always recommend anybody who's transitioning to NinjaOne disable your GPOs around patching. That's really the only conflict that we see with Ninja patching is when there are GPOs in place, pointing the device to look for a WSUS server that is going to impact NinjaOne's ability to patch. Keep in mind, if you want to leverage a WSUS server as the repository for patches, you can absolutely do that. But you still would want to remove the GPO. You would just auto approve on the WSUS side, point the Ninja agent to look at that WSUS server. You'll find this setting inside of the organizations menu. There's a WSUS option there. And you would then go ahead, patches would flow from WSUS to the device, and all the approvals would still be managed through NinjaOne. Let's look at software patching now. So software patching looks very, very similar to the operating system patching that we see. Even though I'm in a Windows policy right now, I will point out that software patching is also available for macOS. Linux, obviously, the nature of how Linux patches, it's just sort of patching on Linux. There's really not a delineation between operating system versus third-party applications. It's just the repositories that the device is pointed to. That's where the Linux patching for NinjaOne will look. But here we can see that we have our reboot options, we have our scan schedule, we have our update schedule. One thing to note here is we do have a force close applications in order to install patches. There are some applications that support background updates. There are many more that do not support that. And so in order to effectively patch, you really need to have those applications closed at the time that we begin the patching. You can force close the applications to install, but obviously this could disrupt work. People could lose work because we are closing and updating an application when we are attempting to initiate these. So that's something you would need to balance again with your operational needs. Is it okay to introduce that level of disruption? I am personally using a reminder here. I'm using reminders for both operating system patching and software patching to generate a message to the end user. Need to run that as current logged on user. And this is going to give a message that says, please close all applications and log out before leaving today. All applications will force close at 5 o'clock and work may be lost. And I'm running this earlier in the day. You can see I'm running this at 10 o'clock. And so that should give people plenty of time during the day to realize, hey, I need to make sure that I close all my applications and log out before I actually begin patching because I am going to lose work later in the day. Now we have our second tab here under software patching, which is where we determine what we actually want to patch. Now we have 2 repositories here. One is the NinjaOne repository. This is about 115 applications. And this is something that would be available again across Windows both workstation and server, as well as Mac OS devices. Then we also have Winget. Winget is only officially supported on workstations, Windows workstations at this time. It does significantly expand the number of options that you have for software patching. I think this is over 6,000 applications that you can patch with Winget. Again, only officially supported on workstations. I have seen that this is working on more modern versions of Windows Server, like Server 22. But again, I don't think that would be officially supported at this point in time. Another thing to be aware of here is that we are not using Winget locally on the device. We are packaging our own binary of Winget for use. So you don't need to worry about anything like ensuring that Winget on the device is updated. Um, for the local device, the NinjaOne agent and what we're doing with patching is using its own Winget binary. So we are bringing our own, so to speak. To change gears here and go into the template library here. This is very useful. I've mentioned a couple scripts here. We have the block Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrade here. We have the compatibility script, check Windows 11 upgrade compatibility right there. We have the Windows Update configure diagnostic right here, which is going to look at a couple services on the device and ensure that the device is prepared to actually patch. We also have this one here, which is installing an out-of-band patch. So if you want to use an MSU file to directly upgrade a device, this would be a very good way to get it done. Now I'll talk about some other options that we have here over on the left-hand side. So now we've seen our patching here. We know when we have patches available. We know when patches have failed. But let's go ahead and look at how we can use some other aspects of Ninja to make sure that we stay on top of patching. And I love to use the device search groups that we see over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to clear out all my filters, but you can essentially create a variety of filters at the top to quickly identify devices. And this is particularly helpful around patching. So this morning, I wanted to do some patching since Patch Tuesday was yesterday. And what I did is I came in here and I looked at all of my servers that have approved patches. And we can see this one right here is currently running a script. The benefit of this is that I can select all my devices that are right here and then immediately run that application of patches to ensure that everybody is getting patches installed in a timely manner. I can do the exact same thing for workstations right here. We can see we have a patch job right here. Looks like patching is actually kicking off right now. And so this is, again, ensuring that I just have a quick one-click ability to easily go and say, yes, I want to patch these devices. I can also do this for scans. Here's all of my patch-enabled servers that are currently online. Maybe I want to initiate a new scan for patches in bulk right here. Can very easily go and initiate that scan like so. Now, one thing is also useful for this is the fact that you can customize the columns that we see here. And so here you can see I have things like the organization and the location. I have the PowerShell version here. But if I scroll over a little bit more, I start to see more info that we've talked about previously. For starters, the Windows Update Diagnostic script that I showed inside the template library will write into a custom field. And so in this case, I can see that my services look good for Windows Update status. This will also display the last time that a scan was initiated on workstations. And then I can also see the Windows Active Support and the Windows Security Support, and that's being populated by Mikey O'Toole's script. You can see that none of these devices are currently in active support, but they are all within Windows Security Support. And if we look here, you can see that I have made distinct conditions for these. So I have one condition for active support on servers and then one condition for security support on servers. On workstations, I have those tied together. It's really going to come down to what you really care about and what you need to know in order to make sure that devices continue to be patched. Now, this is also useful for other bits of information. So let's look at my patch-enabled workstations here. You can see here I'm including things like the OS name. Am I on Windows 10? Am I on Windows 11? Then I have the release ID. So I can see any devices here that might not be on 22H2, the most recent version of Windows 10, which would mean they would be out of scope for support. I can also see where I've made the block of Windows 11 on the registry right here. I can see where my devices are capable of Windows 11. You can see down here at the bottom, I just have this one that's registering as capable. I have, again, my PowerShell version there, and then I have my other options here for when we last checked for updates, if we're in active support, if we're in security support. Another option here might be for failed patches. Now, this is a bad example because I don't have any failed Windows patches right now, but if I did, I could create a search group like I have right here to easily show me where failed patches have occurred. I can also use this as the backbone for a report that can be sent out on a regular basis. So if I go to my reporting here, you can see that I have created a failed patch report. And so any patches that have failed, I can go ahead and send this out as a CSV every single day. So that way I can go to my help desk. I could create a ticket there. It could just be something that I look at every day, looking to see if I have any failed patches. If I don't, then obviously everything is good to go. Another way to use this is for those Windows 10 machines that are not on 22H2. Here are three devices. They are all running Windows 10 and they are all below version 22H2 of that build. And so what we can do here is have this sent out on a regular basis. And this is a great way to know when you have devices that are not on the latest version of Windows. Very useful. We would want to go ahead and perhaps use that MSU script that we saw earlier or another script to try and force this device up to the latest version of Windows 10. Couple questions here. I will try to go through and answer these as quickly as I can. Change to most upvotes here. Question from Jared. Are all the winget patches silent? In my experience, many winget commands run an interactive interface after the command runs. So winget by default runs in a current user context. NinjaOne's does not. NinjaOne's is running a system. So when we're patching devices, it shouldn't require a logged in user. It shouldn't really present any identifying information or any indication that something is happening to the end user. So yes, I would say that winget patches are silent in my experience. And again, that's specifically with NinjaOne's implementation of winget. If you were to use the winget script in our template library, I don't think it would operate the same way. There may be some indication to the end user in that case if you use the template library script. But for NinjaOne's native implementation of it in the policies, I would expect that to be silent. Quick question from Curtis here. Is the winget option still in beta? Yes, it is still in an early access state. We expect, well, we hope that this is going to go into a generally available state with our 8.0 release, which we do plan to have out before the end of Q1 2025. When Ninja runs the third-party driver updates, does it require the Dell, Lenovo, or HP software to be installed on the device? Yes, typically driver updates through Windows Update are going to be different than the manufacturer-specific BIOS updates like Dell, Lenovo, and HP, and you would need to use custom scripting with those respective tools to be able to actually push BIOS and firmware updates to the device. So yes, we'll do driver updates, but the BIOS and firmware updates are going to be a different kettle of fish. Question. How do major OS updates, for example, 22H2 to 23H2 or Windows 10 or Windows 11 work through Ninja patching? It works just like the rest of the patching does. We can see we have a feature update here for Windows 10 version 22H2. All I need to do is go ahead and approve that here, and it would install just like all the other patches would. It would be a silent installation, but of course, feature updates do tend to be more of a big visual change to the end user. So the end user is more likely to notice when a feature upgrade has pushed, but they are still silent, just like the other Windows patches that happen here. In fact, I keep this one here strictly to show that we can do it for demonstration purposes. That's why we still have older versions of devices, is just to demonstrate that it's bad and we want to make sure we can use Ninja to fix the problem. It says David has a question. What is the update frequency for each endpoint? Is it automatic or does it require a scan? It does require a scan. And again, that is something that you can set within your policies right here. I am scanning once a week for any new patches, and I am installing them once a week. You can make these cadences different. So it is possible for me to scan every day at 5 o'clock, but this is strictly look, look, don't touch. It's looking and saying what new patches are available, and then nothing's actually being installed until Thursday right here. Sorry, I keep looking at these questions and they keep jumping around. Uh, the wonderfully named Chris Hunter. No relation, I don't think. Are you my brother? He asked, are there any recommended tech blogs that help keep up with all this? Yes, a lot of the ones that we showcase here, and well, I'm not seeing it there, but the ones that we look at here, Bleeping Computer is a good one. Forgive the profanity, but yes, Bleeping Computer is a good one. Nothing else is springing to mind, but I will look for the Hive Mind chat. What are some good uh, sites to go ahead and keep up to date on Windows patching issues? Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about roadmap. I will come back and answer more questions, time allowing, before we move on. Sorry, there was a lot to get through today. So right here, new patching features in 7.0. Again, the 7.0 release will start to roll out in early December. And so that'll go to Canada, it'll go to our OC instance, it'll go to the EU, probably in the second or third week of December. And then most of the United States is not going to receive it until after the new year. Our current projected date, I think, is January 8th. Excuse me. So yes, most people in the United States, you're not going to see the 7.0 release until after after the first of the new year. Everybody else, you'll get it sometime in December, and that'll give us a nice long period to bake in and fix any issues that might arise before it comes out in the US. Now, what are the features that are related to patching that are coming out in 7.0? We can see here that we are going to be able to initiate patch scans and application cycles via the API. This is really exciting. It's going to allow you to have, uh, to trigger those patch scans through the API. It allows you for greater orchestration. I'll give you a preview here as well. In a future release, hopefully the 8.0 release, but no guarantees. But you will be able to also initiate patch scans and application cycles as a native automation within NinjaOne. So in the same way that you might empty the recycle bin today using a native script in NinjaOne, you'll also have options there to go ahead and initiate patch scans and application cycles very easily within NinjaOne. And this will be completely detached from the scheduling within policies. So it gives you a lot more flexibility with how you are patching, distinct from your policy settings. 7.0 will also have the ability to scan or apply patches on system startup. So as an additional scheduling option, instead of daily, weekly, monthly, some sort of quarterly cadence, you'll also be able to say every time the device boots up, it needs to also patch. And we're also bringing in SUSE Linux patching support. That is the one Linux distribution that we did not have patching support for already. And so very excited to finally bring that out. Now that's 7.0 release. Let's look beyond that. Let's look into the rest of 2025. What does the first half look like? First of all, patch caching for first third-party applications and then operating systems. We're going to see that start to roll out into early access. This will let you essentially designate nodes to hold those patches as a repository, and then everybody else will pull from that local repository. So this will eliminate the issue that we have now, which is that if you're using NinjaOne patching, each device might go out individually to the internet for its patches. This will allow a workaround here, so all your patches can be downloaded centrally to one node, and then that node will distribute those patches to all the other endpoints on that network. I got ahead of myself here. You'll be able to initiate the patch scans and applications as native automations within NinjaOne. We are also redeveloping the reboot prompt for end users. It's going to look way nicer than it does today. So very happy to finally have that come out. And then prompting the end users to close when patching third-party applications. You saw that we had kind of a workaround for that today with a separate reminder as a schedule automation within policies. This is going to give you the ability to just do that natively as a part of the patching process. That's been a huge request, I know, and so we're very happy to finally bring that out. I'll go ahead and see if I can take a few more questions here. And I will go back and show something that I think is cool. It leverages the NinjaOne API to create some additional patch reports inside of NinjaOne. So if I come here, you'll see I have a patch installation report right here. So this was for October 2024. And what I'm doing is I am using the NinjaOne API to scrape for all the patches that were installed. And then I am creating this little document right here inside each organization. Just gives me every patch that was installed on a line item with the device. You also get some additional patching metrics up here at the very top. You can see how many scan cycles we had, how many application cycles, how many patches were actually installed, and if we had any failures. And if you're interested in this, this is in the NinjaOne Discord. I think we have a invite link that we can post in the chat. Very, very useful there. And we also have a cumulative update patch report as well. This is also in Discord. I just like this because it shows you what the state of patch compliance looks like, specifically for a cumulative update across your fleet. Obviously, this just came out yesterday. I don't think this has ran quite yet since I installed those patches. So you can see that things don't look good here. But if we go back and look at October's, looks like things are a little bit better there. We can see that most of these have had a cumulative update installed. So again, both those scripts that I showed, those are on the NinjaOne Discord. Would definitely recommend checking out the Discord. There's some really cool stuff in there. I did see that some people were asking about updating in between versions of Windows, like if a device hasn't been patched for a really long time, how to get it up to the latest version. And I know that the Discord has some very good scripts there. Getting back to questions, Gary asks, once patches have been installed, does another scan have to be completed to see if there are further patches, or is this just part of the patching process? There is additional scans, a post-update scan that runs, so you should see the information be accurate and up to date after a patch has installed. We have a question here. Does a scan schedule perform a reboot? And so a scan schedule on its own is not going to perform a reboot. However, a scan schedule could identify that a reboot is already outstanding on the device. And per your policy settings here, if you have it set to automatically reboot, this would have the impact of triggering a reboot on your device. So a scan schedule on its own is not going to trigger a reboot, but a scan schedule in conjunction with a reboot automatically option, like I have right here, this could absolutely lead to a reboot. It's one of the reasons why on servers, I prefer to just do nothing. That way there's no potential for accidentally triggering a reboot out of band. Especially on servers, I would recommend making these as least invasive as possible. I probably would not use anything other than do nothing or prompt to reboot for a logged in user on a server. And then if a user is not logged in, I would reboot at a specific point in time that I know is safe and not rebooting immediately. That would, of course, lead to a situation where a server gets rebooted in the middle of the day, out of band, when you don't want it. We don't want that at all. So yes, a scan schedule isn't doing that on its own, but if you have your policy settings configured in a certain way, that could absolutely happen. So good to be cautious with that. Question from Robert. Can you set up deferrals when a reboot is required? You absolutely can. You can see here that you can set up a number of deferrals. So right here, we can go ahead and say, well, you get bothered every 4 hours and you have 10 opportunities to defer before the reboot would then be enforced on you. There's a message there that says your machine is going to reboot in 15 minutes. Eric has a question. Is there a way to send a user reboot prompts completely outside of patching? You absolutely can do that leveraging the, let me go back to this policy. Here I have the display pop-up script. And in this case, I am actually having this just display a reminder to close out all their applications before they leave. But I could modify this to be a restart reminder. I could customize my message to prompt the end user to reboot. So you can absolutely do that using this script. It is a template library script. It is called display pop-up in the template library. Just real quick, we'll go and show that off right here. Oh, if I could type, great. And you can see we have a litany of display pop-ups, toast messages, can have a hero image on there. You can give them the option to snooze or dismiss. So yes, if you're doing reboot prompts, this is the best way to go. We have 2 minutes left, so get your drum roll emojis ready. Let's bring out JP to announce the winner of our giveaway for today's webinar.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Thanks everyone for joining us here. A little bit of housekeeping before we announce the winner. So definitely go ahead and check out that resources section there at the bottom. You can find the link to our YouTube channel where we always upload these webinars. You can find the link to our Discord with all the great stuff that Jeff's been talking about. And Q&A. I know we have a lot of Q&A that we didn't get to today. Don't worry, we're going to be routing that to your AMs and they can reach out to you with an answer. I think that's everything. Oh, one more thing. In the resource section, you will also find we teamed up with the For Dummies people, the team at For Dummies, to release a patch management guide for dummies. So go ahead and download that as well. But yeah, without further ado, allow me to announce our winner for this week, who will receive their choice of a Samsung soundbar, a Apple Watch, or an iPad. And the winner is Devin Baylor. So big thanks to Devin for joining us. Big thanks to everyone for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, JP. We have 1 minute left. So I had a question from Aaron here. This is our most upvoted question that I missed, so I wanted to make sure I answered it. Can you explain if there are better log files for patches that fail, maybe on the user's computer? Usually it just says something in Ninja software failed to install or something similar. For starters, I would strongly recommend looking at the activities feed of the device for patches that do fail. So when we do see failures, and unfortunately I don't have one right here to show you, but at the device level, the most common reason for patches failing is because the application was in use. And so you will see that indication at the on the activities feed at the device level saying that we were unable to patch due to the application being in use. Aside from that, if you look inside the program data folder on a device, the Ninja RMM agent folder is where we host all of our logs. So you might find something useful in there, but I would start with looking in the app, in the at the device level, at the activities feed to see if you're seeing that application was open error message. That is absolutely the most common reason we see applications fail for third-party software patching. Uh, Bill has a question here. It says, can you add a new status, approved but not applied? So that actually is something that exists already in the approved bin here. If you're seeing something in the approved bin, it means it has been approved, but it hasn't been installed yet. You can also see all the devices that meet this criteria by creating those device groups that I mentioned earlier. In this case, all servers with an approved patch and patching enabled, and then corresponding workstations with an approved patch, but that is awaiting installation. I'm over time. I apologize. I ramble on and on about this. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We are going to try to get all these questions in the Q&A answered from your account managers. So if something doesn't happen, please feel free to reach out and I'll make sure you get an answer. Thank you everyone for being here today. Again, the recording will be sent out tomorrow and I will be including an Excel spreadsheet that documents a lot of what I have showed here today, making it a little bit more easily digestible. So thank you again, and I hope everyone has a good day. Take care.